Hey guys, it's Jane. It's Friday today, so I'm here again for another Friday Reads. Now, this was a bit of a confusing week, but I did do a fair bit of reading. I finished 3 books this week. First up, I finished Nation by Terry Pratchett. This was one that I read for my In Real Life book club, and it was a really confusing read for me emotionally because while I actually kind of enjoyed the story, a lot of it felt like a not very far under the covers rant about religion. and while I kind of agreed with some of the points that he was making, his conclusions and mine are quite disparate. So, yeah, it was an interesting read and a not entirely comfortable one. And I am going to really look forward to my book club meeting where we can get together and thrash it out. Some of the people in my book club are Christians and some aren't. And yeah, I think this is going to be a really interesting book to discuss. It's not really post-apocalyptic like I was thinking it was, and yet at the same time, it sort of kind of is. It's about an island, a group of islands in the Pacific Islands. Well, not the Pacific Islands, the Pelagic Islands, because we have an alt universe thing going on, although this is much, much, much more like Earth than Discworld. So this Pacific Islander who has just gone out on his initiation journey, and he's coming home to be made a man and on his own on a canoe or whatever, and a tidal wave comes and completely destroys the civilization that he grew up in. And so he is by himself at the beginning of the story, and then he's joined by a girl who was washed up on the beach by the tidal wave, who's a British girl who turns out to be the heir of heir to the British throne in a bizarre twist of influenza. But anyway, that's that. So we have them, and then they're joined by some other survivors as the story progresses. But although I haven't read The Martian, I have seen the trailer to the movie, and it seems to me that the whole thing about that story is that it's like he's got to science the hell out of it to get home. And this is that's the thrust of the plot in this. They've got to science their way out of this disaster. And along the way, we have a whole bunch of discussion about how science is superior to superstition or religion or whatever. So anyway, that was Nation. And yeah, it was certainly interesting. And as I said, I'm looking forward to book club. The second one that I finished was Josephine Tay's The Daughter of Time. And this is historically a really interesting book. It was published in 1951, shortly before the author's death. She died in 1952. And it's a kind of sort of a detective story. I picked this one because I stumbled across a list that the Crime Writers Association of Great Britain made, I think it was published in 1990, of the 100 greatest crime books of all time. And this came in at number 1. And it was a book that I'd never even heard of. And so I thought it's the best crime book of all time, according to the Crime Writers Association of Great Britain. And I've never heard of it. And I've never heard of Josephine Tay. And I'm going to read this book. And I did. And yeah, it's a really interesting one. I don't know that I would necessarily pick it as the greatest crime book of all time, but I understand why it got there. I'm not going to talk about it now because I'm going to do a Mystery Monday review of it. The third book that I finished this week, I just finished it this morning, was Snow Crash by Neal Stephenson. This is one of my favourite books of all time, and I was rereading it partly because I just felt like it, and partly because the BookTube reading buddies are doing a read-along for it in July. I think I might actually, if the like sun ever comes back here and I get some good lighting, I might do a standalone review of that one as well, because I've picked out a whole bunch of favorite quotes out of it, and I wrote up a review on Goodreads and collected my thoughts. So I think I might do a standalone review of that one as well. But suffice it to say, it was a favourite at the time and I still loved it on the, I don't know, nth reread. So yeah, that's a real goodie. And if anybody feels like having a crack at it this month or during the read along, I can only strongly encourage you to do so. Okay, I am going back to the library in half an hour when I finish filming this. And I'm taking back Tana French In the Woods and a few other books. I haven't finished In the Woods, and there was nothing wrong with it. I put it down because I wasn't feeling in the mood to it, and I've just never got back to it. And now it's due back, and I've been tossing and turning about whether I should extend it. And I decided, no, there's just other books I feel more like reading at the moment. So even though there was nothing wrong with it, I'm DNFing it, and I am taking it back to the library because I can, because I'm a big girl and I'm allowed to do that if that's what I choose. Does she protest too much? I'm not really sure. Anyway, please don't hate me, all those people who love this book. Yeah, I didn't finish it. So as for what I'm going to be reading now, I've got a few things that are competing for first place, and I don't know what I'm going to pick up first, but this is what I've got at the moment. I've got The Anchoress by Robin Cadwallader. Something, I'm mispronouncing that, I'm sure. It's not a name I'm familiar with, but the précis looked really interesting, and I got that on my e-reader from the library. So it's on my e-reader, so it's more likely to get read. I've got A Trifle Dead by Livia Day, which is the first in a cozy crime series set in Hobart. I don't think I've ever read a book set in Hobart before. Hobart is the capital city of Tasmania, which is the island state at the bottom of Australia. Anyway, I've never read a book set in Hobart, I don't think. So that kind of, and I've heard good things. A friend of mine read it, and so yeah, I'm looking forward to that one. I've also got the Fyrelit tragedy, the buddy read I'm doing with Aussie Bookworm, and I have Attica Locke's Pleasantville, which I really am hoping to get to soon. So maybe, who knows, maybe I'll get all of them read this week. That sounds unlikely, but you know, one or two of those will get read. In other things, other business, I finished Genesis as part of my Bible read along. And I'm really enjoying the conversations that we've been having on the BookTube Reading Buddies thread. So I'm glad I joined that in. Ready for Exodus to get jumping. I'm a little bit behind, I think, in our timeline. So I've got to get my skates on for that. But, you know, Genesis was a winner. So Exodus, here we come. And tonight I am going to the movies with a girlfriend, and the negotiation when you're going to the movies with a friend about what you're going to go and see is always a kind of interesting one. And I was sort of plugging for either Inside Out, or maybe there's this Beach Boys biopics has John Cusack, one of my favourite actors, in it. But no, we're not going to see that. We're going to see Far From the Madding Crowd, which is an adaptation of Thomas Hardy book, which is why I'm mentioning it here. Thomas Hardy is not really my thing. My husband reads Thomas Hardy, and when he heard we were going to see this one, he nearly wet himself laughing. Because he knows that what I love in a book and in a movie is a happy ending, and Thomas Hardy is no real guarantee of that. So I'm not really sure how this is going to go, but there you go. Maybe this will be one Thomas Hardy I can tick off the list, having seen the movie. What do you think? Does that count? Does that count? I don't really know. Anyway, that's what I'm up to at the moment. Why don't you tell me what you're reading or what you're doing this weekend? I'd love to hear. I hope you're all well, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.